Alright, let's get to work on the last section on the main page, which is a footer. I'm going to comment out the remaining commented markup in this file to make this footer visible, and let's take a look how this footer looks like. As you can see, it's kind of broken on mobile, so let's start working on its responsiveness. The first thing that I like to do is to decrease the paddings from the top and from the bottom. On mobile devices, I'll set paddings to 6 units. But on bigger screens, the top padding will be 10 units and the bottom one will be 8 units. Then we're gonna apply spacing between the main part of the footer as well as copyright text and set it to 8 units on other screens, but on mobile devices, we'll set this spacing to 6 units by using GapY6 class. And then as for the main content of the footer, we'd like to position elements within this footer vertically on mobile devices, and that is why I'm using flex call class, which sets flex direction property to column, and on all other screens we want those elements to show up on the same line, which we can achieve by using class flex row with the prefix of sm. So this way we're basically overriding the property set by flex call class. And the spacing between child elements within this block will be 8 units on bigger screens and 10 units on mobile devices. Now let's get to work on this part, which wraps the logo with the text. So we want this text to stretch all the way to the right side, and also when we will try to hover over on an empty space, which is to the right side of the logo, the cursor changes, which means this part is still clickable, but we need to make clickable only the logo itself. So I'm going to apply a couple of additional classes to make this logo not to stretch in its parent container. Firstly, I will assign a couple of classes to the wrapper which wraps logo with the text. Let's position both of those child elements vertically and align them to the left side. And as for this maxW80 class, which sets maximum width to this container, we're not going to use this constraint on mobile devices, so let's add a sm prefix, so the max width is only going to take effect on bigger screens. Alright, cool. Now as you can see, the text is stretching all the way to the right side of the footer, and when I try to hover on an empty space to the right side of the logo, the cursor is not changing, so this area is not clickable anymore. Now let's decrease the spacing between this logo and the text at the bottom. I'm going to use 2 units from the top on mobile devices, but on the rest of devices we'll make this top margin 4 units. And I also prefer to decrease the text size, set it to small on mobile devices, but on all other screens we're going to reset this text size and use default one by using text base class, like this. Now we're going to position all these lists vertically. So let's switch over back to the editor and apply flex call class to this wrapper, which will basically make all child elements be positioned vertically, and then I will use 16 units as a gap between all child elements on all other screens, but on mobile devices this gap will be 2 times less, 8 units. And here I have also applied flex row class with the prefix of sm to basically reset the property set by flex call class, because on all other screens we want all those lists to be positioned on one row. Then we're going to make the spacing between list heading and the list itself 4 units on all other screens, and on mobile devices this spacing will be 3 units. And by the way, as you may have already noticed, that we're applying a couple of classes to this element which basically do the same thing, and that is text sm and text lg classes that are applying font size, so there is no need to apply those 2 classes at once. I'm going to remove one of them, for example text lg. Then we'll also decrease the gap between individual list items on mobile devices. I'm going to use GapY1 class, and for all other devices the gap will be 2 units. As for the font size of individual list item, we'll make it smaller on mobile devices, and on all other screens we'll reset this font size and we'll use default size by using class text base. And just because we are using several list items in this list, it makes sense to copy over all this list of classes and apply it to the rest of list items. Even more, we are using exact same list inside this footer 3 times. So behind the scenes, I have basically gone ahead and applied the same modifications to classes that we have just made to the classes of the first such list. And as you can see now, all those lists are looking identical. And lastly, I prefer to reduce top padding of this element on mobile devices. For example, let's use PT6 class instead of PT8. We will use PT8 only on bigger screens. And that's actually it. We have finished working on the responsiveness of the main page, and now we can check the final result. So on this page, we have header at the very beginning, then comes main section with 3 more subsections such as hero section, features section, and newsletter section, and at the very end we have footer section. In the next lesson we're going to move on to working on the responsiveness of another page. Link to the source code of this project will be in the video description.